Good morning, everyone. And I think Colleen and I got that memo about Power Red Day today. So thank you, Helena. So I have a little bit of a story to share, and it's a little bit long, but there's a lot of good lessons in this story. So picture this. It is the day before my 22nd birthday, and I am driving a 20-foot U-Haul in Boston through rush hour traffic. Now, how many of you out there have driven in Boston at rush hour? Okay, so maybe a few of you get this, but it's a scary thing. So here I am, white-knuckled and anxious, as I am driving this U-Haul to New York to meet up with the rest of my teammates. So we were driving to Albany to represent MIT and against 20 other universities in the American Tour de Seoul, which was a 5-day solar car race. And to say the stress was high was truly an understatement, because honestly, the obstacles just kept getting larger as race day grew near. And getting that 20-foot U-Haul to the race intact without a hitch, it really only foreshadowed the tenacity that I would need as a team leader, as a mechanical engineer, and as a solar car driver. Now the weather, record high temperatures. This was May of 1991, so I'm sort of dating myself. I mean, clear sunny days, the heat was blazing so hot that you could see those heat waves coming off the pavement. It was really perfect for a solar car race. And the relief of my arrival was short-lived though, because the other co-captain, I found out, had left his driver's license in Boston. He was slated to go the first day of the race and was therefore disqualified. He was going to have to go and get his license. So that news actually triggered a flashback for me. So here I'm thinking back to our very first solar car meeting in September of that year. Here I am, the lone woman in a room with 10 guys. Now, I grew up with 10 brothers, so thankfully I was used to that dynamic. But I'm sure the guys in the room were like debating how long I'd last. And it was really important that I make them understand that I was willing to make a good commitment as well as sacrifices to be on this team. For some reason, it just absolutely resonated with me, and I was 100% all in. So what I did is I worked with MIT. The solar car team became an official club on campus. We actually got official lab space on campus as well. And I led the fundraising efforts. So we got supplies, donations, some money so that we could actually build the car for the 3 races we were doing. I was in the lab all the time. And so much so that my friends, they said, like, Krista, we never see you anymore. I had traded my social life for what I hoped would pay off as not only a fantastic experience, but an accomplishment. And it did. My leadership and initiative became so clear that it wasn't very long before the guys named me co-captain of the team. And I had worked hard to be seen as an equal, but I had had to even work harder to be seen as a leader. Now, 9 months later, I had to prove it again. So race day was finally upon us, right? I had to dig deep for that courage of what my team needed. I had never driven the car because honestly, we had really just finished it. And I had been expecting, I was slated to drive the 2nd and 4th day. And I was truly expecting to sort of watch and learn from the other co-captain's performance on the 1st day. So now I would have to take his place. I would have to be strong. You know, I'd had a feeling that I needed to memorize the race route in my head. And so I stayed up, I couldn't sleep at all. I stayed up half the night until it was etched into my memory. And I didn't want to disappoint or make the team look bad if I didn't do well, right? And beginning that 1st day, you know, the obstacles just kept stacking up. It just seemed like one thing after another. And no matter how much I had studied, I couldn't have prepared for what came next. So to reduce drag, we designed the solar car with very little headroom from the driver. So there was a super hard seat, which was reclined. So the actual visibility was extremely limited. And then to top it off, we didn't realize this, but the race rules required that we wear a motorcycle helmet in the car. So there went my peripheral vision completely. And we also had a chase car, and they were responsible for notifying me of traffic conditions along the route and just basic communication. Because the 5-day race started in Albany, New York, and it ended in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And it was all on public roads. So we were going 55 miles an hour. So my intuition to actually memorize that route the night before, it paid off. So we encountered another obstacle that we hadn't even considered. So here I am on race day. I'm strapped into the vehicle. I'm getting ready for potentially like over 4 hours in the sun-powered car, hard Kevlar seats, no water, no food. And suddenly we discover that the communication system was not functioning. I would be alone. I couldn't believe it. I was like, what else can go wrong, right? But I did not show it. What it did is it only made me more determined to win. And the goal of the race was simple, really. It's finish in the fastest time. And whatever battery power was left over, we can do extra laps to take time off the clock. So we had engineered the car so well that not only was I able to complete the course, but I was able to drive more than an hour longer to get time off that clock. And no other team was able to do that much extra time. And my intuition to memorize the route actually gave me another advantage, because in secret competition with my teammates, with all the guys, the guy who drove on the third day actually got lost. So I have to say, I kind of laughed. So I had represented my team and my gender and proven what it takes to be a leader. It really is about sheer determination, but also that fear of letting people down and to do what comes naturally as a means of competing. That was my first experience in real competition, and I found out that I absolutely loved it. You know, we won that 5-day race, and I had had countless of interviews, and I truly felt like a celebrity. Really fun time. And I took what I learned from that race into my career in business. Working with the guys on the team, it was truly a collaborative effort, and we all brought different skill sets to the table. I also learned from that race that fear can be a powerful drug. And when it's used to keep us focused, it can work like adrenaline. And that adrenaline can actually make you more intuitive if you listen to the inner wisdom that comes with it. And I have to say that growing up with 3 brothers absolutely helped me navigate the field that I chose. So after I finished completing my bachelor's and master's in mechanical engineering from MIT, I challenged old school dogma. So as Helena stated, I entered the male-dominated automotive industry, and I picked engine division, no less, which even has less women. And I spent 28 years working to help advance the future of transportation. So 23 of those years, I worked directly for automotive manufacturers. And 3 years I spent at Ernst & Young leading their Future of Mobility initiative. And now, as the Chief Transformation Officer of Thirdware, an Indian-based information technology company, I am leading the emerging technology team. I am also a mother. So with 3 sons of my own, ironically, they have seen a mom with leadership skills who's also teaching them how to be good men. So I'd like to take a little bit of a turn here. So we've all heard about Charles Darwin, right? And he coined the term survival of the fittest. So of his 10 children, 2 of them died in infancy. And Annie, his 10-year-old, she devastated the family when she passed away. And his wife was actually his cousin. And he had feared that the children had inherited genetic weaknesses from their inbreeding. And his personal experience then motivated him to study outbreeding in nature and noting that the strength of a species is in its diversity of gene pool and a natural selection. And so what's interesting is this term survival of the fittest, it has been taken out of context in the business world and, in my opinion, completely misled corporate agendas. It's been associated with the biggest and the strongest. And what that's done, it has created a male-dominated business arena. And trust me, I should know, I've lived it. And as a result, it's limited the diversity of thought, and in my opinion, is analogous to inbreeding in nature. And I also believe it strengthens the argument that women compete in different ways than men. And women must find ways to compete that complements their nature, not fights against it, just like what I did in the solar car race. And companies today, they don't evolve the way nature does. But I do believe companies can learn from understanding nature. And think about it, nature can lay dormant, but then it can move in full force when the old fall and conditions change, and new systems take over a habitat and find a new niche. And think about it. When has nature not won? And yet so many women I see fighting their natural gifts. So I have used this approach in my own career. So identifying changes in the environment, I've sensed what feels right in my gut. And it's without proof, it's really instincts, and that's what I call my intuition. And sometimes my instincts have said to pounce on an opportunity. And at other times, I had to hunt and lay low and just wait, be patient. And going back into science again, so MRI studies show that women, they tend to zigzag across the hemispheres of the brain. We seek in business a collaborative and team-oriented environment. We look for agreement in order to build a community. And historically, we've been led to believe that women agreeing is a sign of weakness. But it's the strength that builds the organization of any power structure. And without it, competition is a dead pursuit. It only feeds into itself. Now in men, the fiber pathways, they run back and forth into the hemisphere. And so what that does is it tends towards direct routes in the brain that really engage one part of the brain for more focus. And men tend to see problems and then connect them to a direct resolution. So women are more inclined to combine the logic and intuition in terms of solving a problem. And because science doesn't understand or can't explain intuition, women remain an untapped resource for solving problems, especially involving team cooperation. So how does this insight give us a picture of why business is as it is today? So everyone says it's a man's world. But isn't that only the case because us women have allowed it to be? And by stating that thought, does it not weaken our power of resolve? Does it not force us to act like a victim of circumstance rather than that powerful force with unique skills? No rules are stopping you except your own. And the successful find a way to compete, right? Despite the conditions, despite the obstacles. The motivated navigate around those. And it's the ordinary that just declare them as impediments and stay still. So a woman cannot act like a man in business and remain inspired. We are who we are because nature evolved us that way. And why would we not want to leverage that competitive power of the feminine approach? We bring more value to a company when we use what's inherent in our evolution. We evolve too when we know who we are. And our evolution is more natural when we start from a natural position. And you know, I like to think of my career as a tugboat, and this might seem silly, but tugboats are small yet powerful, and they're extremely critical for big ships navigating through the harbors, just as young men and women make excellent guides in business. Tugboats and those great vessels, they have a synergistic relationship. Each one respects each other's functions. So I learned to ride the wakes of those big ships. And by successfully navigating around that harbor, I didn't get overwhelmed by the other big ships. Instead, I worked hard to become a great ship myself. So I challenge you to see yourselves as that vital and powerful tugboat in anything you begin. Allow yourself to serve something larger than yourself. And you'll become the great ship as you grow and remaining true to yourself. Be true to the big picture and don't get discouraged if you're not yet that big ship. So the two things I'd like to leave you with, that us women, we really need to use our intuition and natural gifts. Those are key. And the second is that nature proves that diversity of thought in business. So having both men and women sit at that business table, it will produce optimal results. I'd really like to see us change that definition in business of survival of the fittest. So going back to race day, so I totally remember. So I of what was said the moment I got out of the car. So here I am, as I said, it was in the 90s. I'm drenched in sweat. I'd been in the car almost 4 hours. And my legs were absolutely numb from the ride. So as I get out of the car, I'm taking off the motorcycle helmet. And the first words I hear are, "It's a girl." And I couldn't help but laugh. And it was the first of many times that I've heard those words. And when I think on my track record, I'm sure it won't be the last. So thank you very much, Helena.